Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch 2020, our show following all the news and rumors on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. I'm Daemon Hatfield, and as always, I am joined by Ryan McCaffrey. He hosts IGN's Xbox podcast Unlocked.
Good to see you, Damon.
You as well. And Jonathon Dornbush. He hosts IGN's PlayStation podcast Beyond.
Hey, Damon.
And this week, we're going to be discussing the nonsense that went on with pre-orders for both consoles. We have poll results for an Xbox poll that might surprise you. But we begin with a truly game-changing event for our industry. As you've surely heard by now, Microsoft will acquire Bethesda for $7.5 billion, more than Disney paid for Star Wars. That will make Xbox the home of very popular game franchises like Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Doom, Wolfenstein, and even upcoming new IP like Starfield. We have a quick meeting before we record this show every week, and I asked everyone if they thought this was still the biggest story of the week, even though it broke on Monday. Ryan called it the biggest story of the past 5 years. Ryan, why do you feel that way?
I mean, I absolutely feel that way. I know I'm the Xbox guy on this show, but I can't think of the last time the industry was just like rocked like this in with such a big move. I mean, I remember Activision merging with Blizzard, which was like, what, maybe 10 years ago now? Like that was a huge thing. But this is one of the premier video game publishers. Because remember, I mean, Bethesda used to be Todd Howard and his merry band of Elder Scrolls developers, and they did amazing work. And Bethesda has successfully grown themselves into a legitimate, well-respected, successful publisher that has a number of studios under their own banner. You know, Tango Gameworks doing Evil Within, Machine Games doing the incredible revival and reimagining of Wolfenstein, the expansion of Bethesda Game Studios itself. They've got Fallout 76, which has come a heck of a long way. They've added Fallout to their stable. Just in general, I mean, this is a studio on its own that they're such a major publisher. They were doing their own E3 press conference every year, and people liked it. Like, it's not one of those, oh yeah, the Bethesda conference. No, it was, we wanted to see what was at the Bethesda conference every year. I'm leaving out id Software, Doom, one of my favorite games this year, Doom Eternal, and one of my favorite franchises ever. Microsoft now has all of that. A company that has battled its own first-party demons in various ways. And even besides the quantity complaint that people have fairly levied against Microsoft's first party, there's also been the complaint that, well, okay, but the first party games that Microsoft does have are all multiplayer-centric games or game-as-a-service games. Well, guess what? Bethesda is probably have more premier single-player games than any other third-party publisher. So this is just like Microsoft just wiped all of the complaints against their portfolio away in one fell swoop. It's just an incredible story this week.
So I think the biggest question about this is whether or not Microsoft will keep these games exclusive to Xbox and PC, meaning they will not be on PlayStation 5, Elder Scrolls 6, whatever Starfield turns out being, the next Fallout game, Doom and Wolfenstein. These are games that PlayStation gamers have played on their console. They're looking forward to future iterations. Is Xbox going to actually make these exclusive, or is the PlayStation audience too big to avoid for Microsoft? First, I want to get the opinions of both of you, but let's begin with Ryan.
Well, there is a case to be made either way, and I think, and I imagine Jonathon would agree with me on this. I'll be curious if he does or doesn't, but if the tables were turned and Sony had bought Bethesda, I don't even think we'd be raising this question. I don't even think it would be a conversation. It would be Xbox will never see Bethesda games ever again. And I don't say that as a knock against Sony. I mean, that is how they have conducted their business. That is the business of consoles. And whereas Microsoft, the fact that we're even raising the question and having the conversation speaks to the fact that Microsoft really has successfully championed their whole mantra now of letting gamers play wherever they are on whatever device they have, whether it's Project xCloud or a PC or what have you. But the more I sit with this and the more I think about it, because we did an emergency episode of Podcast Unlocked on Monday morning, right after this broke, and just sort of hashing out our initial reactions. having a few days now with this, I'm now of the camp where, and I know Phil Spencer specifically said be kind of a case by case basis, but I think the big boys, the Elder Scrolls, the Dooms, the Fallouts, you don't pay $7.5 billion to put it on your rival platform, on your rival's platform. I mean, yes, you could take a publisher's cut of millions of copies sold on PlayStation 5, but you could also draw a whole lot of people into your ecosystem, which is probably a lot more valuable than just the 30% cut of that $70 PS5 game. You know, you get them into Game Pass, you get them buying all their DLC and microtransactions on the Xbox. So I think the big boys are going to be Xbox exclusive, or of course PC. Microsoft has fully embraced PC. But yeah, I think the Elder Scrolls is now the biggest franchise on the Xbox, the biggest exclusive franchise. And I say that, yes, bigger than Halo until Infinite. I hope Infinite proves us wrong in 2021, proves me wrong. But I think Elder Scrolls is now the biggest thing on the platform.
Wow, yeah. I agree with Ryan that I can see the case. I can see reasons for both scenarios where either Microsoft keeps these real exclusives or distributes them on PlayStation, gets a nice Microsoft Studios logo on your PlayStation 5, maybe. All the money for the PlayStation sales are being funneled into Microsoft. Jonathon, obviously you have a vested interest in Microsoft allowing these games to appear on PlayStation. Obviously you hope that's what happens, but what do you actually think will happen?
I think it is way too early to tell, because quite frankly, we're talking about games that are multiple years out, most likely, when it comes to the heavy hitters like Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, and whatever the next Fallout is. This doesn't really change the lineup for these consoles in the next 12 months. We're still going to be looking at largely the same lineups. This does change, I think, the entire generation. And I think it's really going to be a conversation we'll have to have and take a look at once we see how things start to play out. If Microsoft runs away with the generation, if they're in the lead and they're succeeding, yeah, why put your games on PlayStation 5 if they are owned by you? Why do that? It doesn't make sense to. If Xbox does fall behind to any large degree, I could see them wanting to make a case, especially with existing games like Minecraft on PlayStation and games like Ori and Cuphead, which they published, not studios they have internally, but they were published Microsoft games coming to Switch. I could see them making a case for saying, hey, these games will come to Xbox and PC first. They're on Game Pass day one, and then a year from now, they'll be on PS5. I could see timed exclusivity windows. I could see day and date, but hey, it's on Game Pass, so why would you go spend $70 on the PS5 to play it when you can buy a Game Pass subscription and get it day one? I could see so many variations of this. I definitely think without a doubt there will be exclusives that go to Xbox. I can see, there's a lot of games on the Bethesda side that are critical darlings, but have been kind of commercial flops, like the Dishonored franchise, the Evil Within franchise, even stuff like Doom, which is selling well, but it doesn't sell to the extent that, Elder Scrolls and Fallout have. I could see some of these games definitely being walled off to Xbox and PC, and PlayStation players will just be out of luck when it comes to some of the probably most critically acclaimed Bethesda stuff either announced or to come. But when it comes to those really, really big games, if you are leaving potentially tens of millions of customers on the table, I could see Microsoft being willing to put some of them on PlayStation with some caveats. Mm-hmm. But I do really think it's just too early to say, because these are some of the biggest games in the industry potentially not being on one of the big two consoles when it comes to 8K gameplay and everything going forward. It's gonna be a really interesting thing to see play out over the coming years.
Yeah, it's funny because last week on the episode we thought we had all the information we needed about the next gen consoles, price and release date, cards are all on the table, but then so Microsoft was really holding this ace up its sleeve. Ryan, if your scenario where these games are all true exclusives for Xbox and PC, you could call it right now, right? Like Microsoft just won. Like they just won the next generation, right?
Well, they made it. They're going to make it a hell of a lot more competitive than this generation was, and obviously the story of Gen 8 has been told a lot. Microsoft made just about every mistake you could possibly make in the beginning of the generation, which set them off on a terrible foot. Whereas also Sony made every right decision out of the gate, and that that's been the story of the generation. But yeah, I mean, if these are first party Xbox games, which they now are, these are first party Xbox games. Then yeah, I mean, the Elder Scrolls. I mean, we've seen it. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion was an Xbox exclusive. In fact, to Jonathan's point of all those different scenarios, it was a timed exclusive, not because there was any sort of agreement in place, but in that case, it was because the PlayStation 3 wasn't out yet. The 360 launched a year ahead of the PS3, and the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion came out in March of 2006 in the launch window, about 4 months after the 360 did. And it was one of the reasons you had to have a 360. I mean, Microsoft did a lot right with the 360 launch. The price, the horsepower, the timing, coming out a year ahead of Sony, but they also did a lot right on the games front. And Oblivion was one of the catalysts for, you look at that game and you go, wow, like I need that system to play that game. So that option is now in Microsoft's pocket again. Yes, to Jonathan's point, the Elder Scrolls 6 is years away. Starfield is next. Based on what Todd Howard and Pete Hines have been saying, I think there's a chance we see Starfield as a big fall 2021 title. If not, probably 2022, because Todd did reiterate this week in an interview with Major Nelson that they've been working on it for quite a while. They have already announced it, so it does seem like it's not super far away. But yeah, like it is their next thing. And yeah, Starfield, there's no reason to put that on PlayStation because it's not it's not an established thing the way that Fallout and Elder Scrolls are. So yeah, right. Starfield at the very least, I would expect you're going to have to buy an Xbox or a gaming PC to play.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. That one being an unknown, it's a lot easier on a corporate level to say, well, we're going to keep this and really make it an Xbox franchise. But yeah, those other two, I do really think it'll be sort of a time will tell situation, but I'm sure there will be reasons to want to get it on Xbox over any other platform. But I mean, there is sort of a reason why it's a joke that Skyrim is on everything, including Alexa these days when it comes to Bethesda. And I wonder what the deal, because, and Ryan, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I do know that the way it was structured, or at least described how it was structured, is Bethesda as a whole will still operate sort of as a publisher of its games, of its development studios, and be working under Microsoft in tandem, obviously, with Xbox and everything. But they are aiming to keep that culture, and I think that maybe also gives them a little bit of an out when they can say, like, well, it's a Bethesda published game via Microsoft instead of an Xbox published game, if they ever decide to bring it to the Switch 2 or the PS5 or wherever they go.
True, but at the same point, you saw the graphic this week that everybody at Microsoft shared out of all the Xbox game studios. There are 23 of them now, and they included the 8 Bethesda studios. So they are part of the Xbox family. So I mean, I totally see your point.
For sure. Yeah.
At the same time, like, yeah, they're Xbox studios now. So it'll be really fascinating to see what happens.
Well, this shocking news does seem to be doing the work of starting to change the hearts and minds of gamers out there. Obviously, Sony is the clear winner this generation. Well over 100 million PlayStation 4s sold. And the IGN audience is known to lean heavily towards PlayStation. That is known. Any sort of poll rerun that pits PlayStation versus Xbox, we can accurately predict the results are going to skew towards PlayStation. But we ran a poll this week asking you if you're more interested in Xbox now after this, if this acquisition leads to more exclusives. And the winning result with 43% of votes was yes. And that it's just very rare to see the IGN audience sort of cast their vote for Xbox here. So I don't know, Jonathan. I guess do you have a sense of, like, I see people both celebrating this news and also being very annoyed by it. And I imagine the people that are annoyed are the PlayStation owners who are worried that they can't play, that they're not going to be able to play these games on their PS5. What's sort of like the sense among the podcast Beyond community?
Yeah, I mean, it's as Ryan was saying, this is probably the biggest merger we can think of when it comes to the games industry. I don't. I think Sony will respond, and I think this will only make them go after more exclusives. I don't necessarily think we're going to see Sony suddenly buy Ubisoft or Square Enix, but it's been a crazy year, so who knows? But
Yeah.
it feels like the level of that. These are, we are talking about Fallout and the Elder Scrolls. These are some of the most popular games in the industry, and I especially know with the IGN audience. And so it only makes sense that with the IGN audience having so many PlayStation players, there is that question of, well, will I have to get an Xbox to play these games that I have spent hundreds of hours in past franchise entries? And so, yeah, there is definitely this, I wonder what it's going to bring. And, it is, as Ryan was saying, a business. At the end of the day, Microsoft has had problems that they have gotten publicly dinged for over and over this generation of having a lack of quality or quantity when it comes to the first party lineup, rightly or wrongly. But that's sort of been the conversation. And so this really instantly solves that problem. And I completely understand why a lot of people would want to say, well, now I might be considering an Xbox when I wasn't in the first place.
Well, of course, Xbox was supposed to have Halo Infinite for the launch of Xbox Series, but that got delayed into next year, which left a lot of people wondering, what is the reason to buy an Xbox at launch? The launch lineup is not particularly stellar. And then right here, a mere 24 hours before pre-orders went live, Microsoft announced this news. I think pre-orders probably got the Bethesda bump this time around. However, both pre-orders have gone live for both consoles, Xbox Series and PlayStation 5. I would say both were very rocky and both were frustrating to a lot of people. I managed to get one of each of the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 from Amazon, but Amazon has already informed me that my consoles probably won't arrive on launch day. Where did you guys shake out in pre-ordering these consoles?
Well, I did manage. I wanted to get a couple if I could, not because I'm a scalper. They're not going to go on eBay, but because I work with the big IGN team and we kind of have it all chatted beforehand. It's like, all right, if you can try to get more than one in case somebody else can't get one, do that. So I was able to get two of each. Interestingly, both for the same retailers. Walmart I got through first on Walmart in both cases, and then Target second in both cases. It's stressful though when you're just on there trying to, particularly when you've got it in your cart and then you click buy and it just doesn't work, and then you got to keep trying. It's just a whole thing. We clearly haven't perfected as a society the whole online shopping on at embargo kind of thing. But I guess it beats physically trampling each other in a big box retailer. But yeah, it's I do feel grateful that I was able to secure pre-orders for each one, and because there is one over my shoulder at the moment that I have to give that one back. But that is real. You can see it's turned on. So yeah, we've got the real one. We're going to be doing some preview coverage. They've not allowed me to share more details or timing with that, but just that is for real. That's not the dummy one. We'll have more coming up soon on IGN. Stay tuned. But I'm still thinking that the launch lineups are not super exciting for either one, but you're absolutely correct, Damon, and that this Bethesda news, coincidental or not, hitting the day before Xbox pre-orders sent a jolt of excitement into the Xbox community, and probably, I guess they were probably going to sell out of all their pre-orders anyway, but I think it just added to the frenzy this week.
Yeah. Jonathan, how's your pre-order adventures go?
I got a PS5 from Amazon. Worked out pretty well. Didn't have too many issues. And then I was invited into that strange, mysterious PlayStation Direct. You'll be invited based on your past PlayStation experience. I guess hosting a PlayStation show maybe helped. I don't know. Or just my platinum trophy count. But either way, I got into that and was able to secure one there. And then I also got an Xbox Series X just that morning. Actually woke up late, saw they were still in stock at Amazon, and was able to get one. And it worked out pretty well and easily.
With Sony, they had their event where they announced the price and release date, and they said pre-orders will go live tomorrow. They didn't give us a time or anything, but then several retailers, I think Walmart was the first one, just started putting them up sporadically early without any warning. So then you had people scrambling trying to find consoles at different retailers. Some people would find them, they wouldn't appear for others. Some people could put them in their carts, but then they couldn't check out. Some people would check out, and then the order would be canceled. It was such a huge mess. And then, of course, the PlayStation Direct pre-orders, which went live last Friday, sold out seemingly within an hour or so. So everything evaporated very quickly. And then with Xbox, we knew exactly the date and time they're going to go live, but a lot of the same issues. People were finding them in certain retailers and not others. They also sold out very, very quickly. So I don't know, Ryan, do you think if both were a mess, did either one handle it better, you think?
No, I mean, on paper, the Xbox way was more fair, but of course you can rightfully point to, well, we live in a world where there are these bots that go and scoop up a bunch of them, and that probably gave the bots an advantage versus Sony's accidentally chaotic pre-orders. But then, of course, on their side, gamers that had expected it to be the next day, and maybe they're at work, maybe they're out, they were caught off guard and weren't able to get one. So I'm not sure which way frustrated people the least, but I would love to see in the future, and I know the next like full and proper generation is probably 5 to 7 years away. Yeah. But boy, it'd be nice to see for these major consumer electronics releases like this, to see the Microsofts, the Nintendos, the Sonys of the world figure something else out, whether we're in cooperation with the retail partners that they do still depend on, whether it's like you have to register for a lottery, or I don't know, there's got to be a more equitable way. I don't have a business degree. That's not my expertise at all. But yeah, it just seems like there's probably a better way than these two equally frustrating ways that we saw over the past week or so.
Yeah, Apple seems to have figured out. They can sell new iPhones every year, and it's not a mess like these two consoles have been. Before we go, we have the results of our poll from last week. We asked you, now that all the cards are on the table, which is pretty funny, which next-gen console will you purchase first? And the winning answer with 48.6% of the votes was PS5 disc version. That's followed by Xbox Series X, then PS5 digital. It's pretty interesting. Our audience is more interested in Xbox Series X than PS5 digital. 7.5% said they would be getting both consoles. Only 3.2% said they'd be getting an Xbox Series S. And that's interesting because it seems anecdotally that there were far fewer PS5 digital consoles and Xbox Series S consoles available than their disc-bearing counterparts. Jonathan, does that seem accurate to you?
Yeah, that seemed to be the case for both. And it doesn't surprise me too much, especially when you consider all of the retailers who had to sell those consoles are essentially selling you a box that makes them irrelevant. Mm-hmm. I can see, one, both companies not wanting too many people to buy the cheaper option when probably at launch a lot of people will buy the more expensive one. But two, those stores probably don't want to sell you the boxes that tell you you don't need to come back to us ever again.
Yeah. Well, it's been an exciting couple weeks here at Next Gen Console Watch, and things should stay exciting. We only have just over a month. It's about a month and a half, I guess, till these consoles are actually here in our hands.
Damon, can I just point out, we've been doing this show for 9 months.
Yeah.
And it's finally, we finally have physical, it's real. The 9 months of doing this show, we're almost there. It's actually getting real now. It's so exciting.
Yeah, very much so. And I look forward to hearing your impressions after playing around with the Xbox Series X. That will do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch 2020. Thank you to both Ryan and Jonathan. We will be back next Friday, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern, with more news and rumors on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. We shall see you then.